Welcome back, Major General. That's what Captain Miller said, standing in my parents' dining room, while my entire family sat frozen. My name is Adam Harrison. I'm 35 years old, and less than 24 hours before that salute, I was the family disappointment. The invisible son. The man they mocked at a party thrown for my golden boy brother, Brandon. Look what the cat dragged in, he sneered for the whole room to hear. You still pretending to be a hero in that little cubicle of yours? Everyone laughed. My father clapped him on the shoulder. Leave him be, Dad said with a smirk. Somebody's got to push the papers to keep real soldiers like you afloat. And I stood there, silent. If only they knew the truth. What would you have done in my place? Bite your tongue or burn the script? Tell me in the comments. You want to know the worst part? That party wasn't for me. It was for Brandon. Balloons, streamers, a giant banner screaming his name. He got a celebration for a minor promotion, lieutenant. I came home after 3 days in the field, bone-tired, carrying a duffel that felt heavier than my soul, and walked straight into their shrine for him. And when he saw me, that smirk, God, I'll never forget it. Look what the cat dragged in, Brandon shouted. You still pretending to be a hero in that little cubicle of yours? Laughter. Not just from him, from everyone. Even Dad clapping him on the shoulder. Leave your brother alone. Somebody's got to push the papers to keep real soldiers like you afloat. The room roared. And I stood there, a ghost at my own homecoming. But that wasn't new. I'd been invisible my whole life. 10 years ago, Dad bought Brandon a brand new truck, cherry red. $4,000, no questions asked. They threw a backyard party so loud it shook the street. For me? A $20 bill for graduation. A busted laptop I worked an entire summer to replace. Science camp? Sorry, money's tight. Funny how tight money always vanished when Brandon wanted something. That truck wasn't just metal and wheels. It was a monument. A monument to everything I wasn't in their eyes. After that truck, I thought maybe one day they'd see me. So I worked harder, pushed myself past every limit. And then it happened. An envelope. Thick, heavy with possibility. Inside, an acceptance letter to a program so selective, most soldiers only dream of it. Special operations. A door few ever get to knock on. My heart was pounding as I walked into the living room. Mom, I said, holding it out like gold. She barely glanced up from sorting mail. Oh, that's nice, dear, she murmured. Just be careful. I turned to Dad, desperate for something more. He took the letter, squinted at the official heading, and shrugged. Is that even for frontline guys? He asked. Sounds like an analyst job, desk work. And that was it. No hug, no pride, no nothing. I went back to my room, closed the door, and stared at the letter like it had betrayed me. The honor of a lifetime, and in their eyes, I was still a glorified clerk. Later, I tried again. Tried to explain my work, the stakes, the weight of it all, without crossing the classified line. They didn't hear me. They weren't even trying. Finally, Mom tilted her head with that relieved little smile. Oh, I get it now, she said. It's like it's support for the military. IT support. After everything. After the nights in hostile zones. The missions I can't talk about. The choices that still keep me up at night. And that's when something in me just broke. Not loudly, quietly, like glass cracking under ice. I stopped explaining, stopped trying. I let them have their fantasy. Brandon, the hero. Me, the paper pusher. Because the truth? It wasn't worth bleeding for people who refused to see you. The breaking point didn't come with a scream. It came over coffee. The morning after that party, Brandon was holding court again, bragging like the world owed him applause. Our new CO is a real hard-ass, he said between mouthfuls of eggs. Gotta make a good impression, though. I'm inviting him to dinner Saturday. Then he dropped the name that stopped my heart. Captain James Miller. Calm electricity shot through me. Captain Miller, the man who served under my direct command during an op so brutal it still stalks my dreams. A man who owed part of his career to a recommendation I'd written. Brandon, in all his arrogance, had just handed me the key. He thought Saturday night would be his victory lap. He had no idea he'd set the stage for his own humiliation. I kept my face neutral, lifted my coffee and sipped. Inside, my mind was silent, sharp, decisive. I excused myself, walked to the den, shut the door, and pulled out my phone. Found his name in my contacts. The line clicked on the second ring. "Captain Miller," I said, my voice steady as stone. "This is Harrison. I understand you're in town." A pause. Then his tone shifted to formal respect. "Yes, sir. I have a family dinner tomorrow night," I continued. "Your presence would be appreciated." He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. "Consider it done, sir." And just like that, the plan was set. For the first time in years, I wasn't a ghost in their story. I was about to become the plot twist. Saturday night. The house smelled like roast beef and denial. Brandon was in full performance mode, spinning some exaggerated war story while Mom and Dad hung on every word like it was gospel. I just sat there, calm, waiting. Then, the doorbell. One sharp chime that sliced through the room like a blade. Dad grumbled, pushed back his chair and went to answer it. A moment later, the room fell silent. Captain Miller stood in the doorway. Immaculate uniform, medals gleaming, shoes polished to a mirror shine. An emissary from the real world. Brandon leaped up, voice booming with fake confidence. "Captain, glad you could make it. Mom, Dad, this is my CO." My parents practically tripped over themselves, shaking his hand, begging him to sit. He smiled politely, but his eyes, they were searching. Scanning the room. Until they found me. Everything changed. The mask dropped. His back went even straighter. And then, snap. He came to full attention. The salute cracked like thunder in the quiet. "Sir," he said, voice cutting clean through the stunned air. "Apologies for the intrusion. I wasn't aware you were back stateside." Then 4 words that shattered 30 years of lies. "Welcome back, Major General." Silence. A silence so heavy it felt like gravity doubled. Mom's fork clattered onto her plate. Dad's hand trembled so hard the knife slipped from his fingers. And Brandon? His face drained of color as his entire world turned to ash. He stammered something. Anything. That's just my brother. He works logistics, desk stuff." Captain Miller's eyes flicked to him, confused, almost pitying. "Your brother?" he repeated, then turned back to me. "Lieutenant, this is Major General Harrison, the commanding officer for the entire Joint Special Operations Task Force." The words hung there like a sentence passed down from God. Miller looked at me again, respect blazing in his eyes. "Sir, your family must be proud." The irony nearly made me laugh. I stood slowly, the chair scraping across the floor like a gunshot. Gave Miller a slight nod, a thank you that said everything. Then I walked. Past the half-deflated balloons. Past my father's pale, shaking hands. Past my brother's broken crown. And I didn't look back. 1 year later, my life is quiet. Not the crushing silence of being ignored. The peaceful kind, the kind you earn. I wake up to sunlight spilling through big windows, not the shadow of someone else's expectations. No roast beef, no forced smiles, no keeping score. Just a small cabin in the mountains. My walls aren't lined with hollow trophies or family portraits staged for show. They're covered with moments that matter, mud-streaked grins from missions that almost broke us, the faces of people who've seen me at my worst and still respected me at my best. This is my family now. Not the one I was born into, the one I built. I heard things, of course. Brandon's career stalled. His name, now a punchline in circles he thought he owned. My parents tried to rewrite history, brag about their Major General son, but the truth was louder than any story they could spin. And me? I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't need to. Because here's what I learned. Your worth is not up for a family vote. Your value doesn't shrink because they refuse to see it. You define it by the life you build and the peace you protect. I spent years begging for a seat at their table. Now I build my own. If you've ever had to walk away to save yourself, drop a comment below. I see you.